Richard.
Hi, Cee.
Welcome to the Seattle Network. Thank you so much for being here with me bright and early this morning in Seattle.
Yeah, happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, this is incredible because you're an executive coach, and when you and I met, there was a lot that we connected on.
We did.
It really felt like we were like two souls that was just like, oh, hey, we've seen each other before, and we connected pretty deeply.
Yeah, even before we started to speak, I spotted you across the room. And
Yeah, that's true.
I
I
needed to speak to her, and you were trying to get out, and you got corralled right back into the booth, and it's like, what is going on? Is this a speed dating thing? What's happening here?
It was truly networking at its finest.
Oh my God, yeah. No, what a pleasure. Yeah, I'm so glad. The energy, you can sense it sometimes way before you speak, right? I mean, it's there.
Yeah. I appreciate you recognizing it.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much for getting on the podcast to talk about this. This truly is an exclusive. This is something that is raw. It is rare because we're going to talk about something incredibly deep. And it's pretty sobering. So everyone who is tuning in right now or who's listening later on the replay, I need to provide some context. And that context is there's a lot of people, and Richard, there's a lot of people in the network that are executives, that are operators. I do usually work in typically male-dominated spaces, and it's always been a weird conversation to talk about because I don't really think about the male-female side of it. I really don't think about any of the isms because I'm just really focused on the merit, and I'm focused on doing really great work. And so all of that stuff, I know I have to navigate it, and I know other people navigate it through it too, but I don't like to prioritize that, so I don't like to distract that. I just like to give people a win-win, fair opportunity, equal opportunity to do the greatest work that they can, and it's all based on skills and complementary skill sets, really. So,
Sure.
But with the with going through and becoming an executive or becoming a manager, and being a different kind of manager, especially in startup land, or if you are especially startup land, because you're dealing with a lot of people. You're dealing with a lot of HR stuff that you didn't recognize that you had to. Honestly, it's there's so many executives that it's so lonely. Like, let's just be real. The startup world is incredibly lonely. You never know who's a shark. You never know where there's snake oil. You never know, like, it's the trust factor, right? And trust is marketing. And so when, you're going through the smoke screens, right? You're trying to navigate through what is someone's intention, what is someone's personal agenda, and how to have that sophisticated conversation of being clear and direct, of communicating what your needs and wants are. How can I help you today with what I'm currently servicing, and this is what my offer is, and it's kind of like in the marketplace of just being extremely clear, and then also being regulated in emotions. And the reason why I have you on today, and you have gracefully agreed, is when we're talking about masculinity, I clearly, maybe not fit the part here, but what I want to share to my peers especially is two things. When we talk about whether it's diverse opinions and perspectives, you don't have to be wearing all those hats. But what makes you a great leader is for you to identify that the person that you are surrounded with, or you're in touch with in some shape or form, whether that they're under the payroll, or they're in your inner circle, or their family or friends, and how to actually support them and letting them know that you are a safe space, and you might not be able to resonate completely, and that you can, you're gonna need some tools, and how to be equipped with the tools to navigate with them, but knowing that they have to be on their own journey because you don't own them.
Yeah, that's right.
They have their own agency. It's like when you have kids, they're going, it's very temporary, but like, just because you are their caretaker and in the moment, that doesn't mean that, they're going to not go on to their own seasons of life. And so the best thing that you can help them do is being emotionally independent and independent in the real world. And so as much as you love them so much, or you want to take care of them, or you feel for them so deeply, they have to overcome those challenges, or else you actually rob them from that opportunity to level up in their own way. And so whether you are a spouse or significant other or the girlfriend or, or the other side of it, what I have learned in my life is that you cannot be all the things. And so you have to provide room and space. And so on both sides of the table, I think it's for all, if you are a woman and the female on the side, you should be able to hear the coaching and the mentorship that they're receiving, so that you can better understand how you can navigate as a support role. Mm-hmm. And that is the other way around too. But in this specific episode, specifically with you, Richard, we're talking about masculinity. So I want to obviously preface, it goes the other way around too. Yes. But specifically in this episode, we're talking about specifically males. And so how can supporting in that way? So it's always about reversing the roles, and whoever is the main character, if you're the support role for them, how to actually support. And then for the main character, in this case, a man, a businessman, an executive in that seat, how can they feel that they can be vulnerable? How can they feel like they can handle? And going through stacks of failures, because one of my business principles is fail fast. And so, but when you have stacks of failing, it's really hard to maybe go through that, because you're trying to figure out, okay, there's no light at all, like everything is going wrong. So, and then how to actually navigate that. And when you're not in the right place in mind, it's hard to see anything or ask for help for anything. And then the other business principle that truly people learn along the way is, oh my God, I actually have to ask for help. And so it's a weird conundrum of how to actually do this people thing, because you're a human. So I'm going to preface it with that. It is helpful for both sides to understand what the heck is going on, how to navigate and deal with this, depending on which degree that you're in that person's circle, how to give them the space, how to give them, and then it's not just the space, it's the help of saying, I hear you, I see you going through this, whether it's depression, whether it's loneliness, whether it's anxiety, like all the things, because, it's this thing that we always talk about with men is like, they're told in society, cannot show your feelings, can't cry, can't have these emotions, even if it's so hard, even though like you're like, yeah, let's have children because now I'm gonna have more responsibility and it's gonna make me do more, Legacy, yes. And then it's like, oh shit, this is hard. Now I have mouths to feed and the market is going this way, or my company is going sideways, or this and this and this is happening. So there's the reality of the situation and how to actually go through this. So Richard,
yes,
you have gone through a lot, and I would love for us to start with, now that the context is over, if you can share your story with where your story really, because we're talking about, just to give you the softball here of, we talked about angry emotions, we talked about alcohol, we talked about financials, and I think there's a lot of our male peers that would love to hear your story, and maybe that there's some areas of resonance where they can feel like they're not alone, because now you're out the other end. You just turned 60 years old.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots of wisdom, and you have a beautiful wife, and you have a relationship, a marriage of over 30 years. And you have renewed your vows multiple times.
Yes.
And multiple times. And you do help couples. You and your wife, you help with launching retreats, couple retreats. And the last retreat, you guys were able to serve and help 40 couples. That's a lot of problems all in one place.
Yeah. Let's say a lot of energy for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Including ours, right?
Yeah.
Talk about a mix.
You're like, holy cow, 40 is a lot. And you have, you tell me like, that it's usually these couples who have seen like 3 therapists. They've tried and tried and tried. So they really try and put the work in. And, so you've had some of your fair share of this, seeing where partnership can thrive and where partnership breaks down, and how a man can navigate through a lot of this energy in people and themselves. So
yeah. So it's a great. I think you laid the groundwork there very nicely. You've got a lot of mulchy soil, that fertile soil
pull
there.
all the threads.
Yeah, that a lot of stuff can grow from it. There's a lot of pieces there. The story is one it's currently very much in progress, and that's really the first thing I would want to start with, is that the moment by moment progress that we make as human beings is the most important thing that we are involved with right now. My time with you, my time with the audience, my time with myself as I'm conveying messages or conveying information is the way to set a groundwork for somebody to take a piece of information or understand a piece of a story or understand even the phrase that pays for them, that they can take, and what do they do with that. My story is not dissimilar. I think when you get stressed out, and I think you mentioned that it's difficult sometimes to be what you need to be in the present for your colleagues, or as a leader, or as a person that people look up to, in that lonely place of being a CEO or a COO or a founder. Those places can be lonely because you don't want to show vulnerability, and the old adage of, gosh, I don't want them to see me that I struggle, and I have the realities of challenges just like everybody else. So that has been a consistent story. I came out into the work realm as a leader, management development program in the retail realm, and so I was immediately a boss, immediately like a guy that was coming out of school and being in leadership programs and actually starting to manage and lead other people. I did that well, and I did that from a standpoint of being sincere, but I also did it from a standpoint of wanting to be successful and wanting to be seen as successful, wanting to, maybe it's the precursor to everything. We want to show our best side, right? Whether it's TikTok or on Instagram, we want to show our best side of ourselves to the world. In a lot of ways that can be good, because maybe we can attain what we want to show and be more of what we want to be for ourselves
press
and
releases.
others. Yeah. So there's something good about that. So in the retail area, it was managing leaders that had been in my position before as a district. We'll just go to the district manager, successions of advancement and promotion, where I was managing leaders that were twice my age and had already had my position before. And so, who's this young snot-nosed person? Who is this, that is managing me and leading me and asking me to do things that I don't necessarily want to do, or they're looking at things that are different from me. So one of the first things that I had to understand and establish was that I had to honor who they were and who they are. So the respect of who they were and what the roles that they did, it would be from seeking advice and to understand their perspective. And the now was more of, what can we do to do today's work the best we can, knowing that I respect you and your history and your work. So that was kind of the main thing there in the retail world. And then going into home building and development, which was a very interesting transition, going from retail to home building, was like, no one heard of that. What, are you kidding me? And so you start again, people, well, what do you know about home building? So I had to start from scratch and do that. So periods of success, fast forwarding, being a leader in a new market in Seattle, starting a company from scratch, the first employee, building it up to 70, $200 million development budgets, to over 1.5 billion in P&L management. All those things were like, yeah, I'm doing all these things and I'm being accolades and it's a great company. It's a great project out of Trilogy at Redmond Ridge, which today people are they just love it. They just love it. And there's a lot of gratitude that I have for the people that were involved and the people that chose to make the investment out there at the end of the day and make it their home. Along the way, and this is where this is where the meat comes into. Yeah. This goes into, along the way, yeah. You can get attached to your success. We all want to have success, whether that's the pride or the money or the recognition or the status. Those are elixirs. Those are things that we really want to have. I mean, there's a basic thing of wanting to be seen, but in the business world of wanting to be successful and recognized as a leader and somebody that someone can count on and someone that can help show the way. And so I was attached to the praise. I was attached to the acknowledgement. And frankly, it was justifiable. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, I was putting 60, 70 hours a week in, and it was in my blood, it was in my system. I integrated the principles and values of the company and mission statement as my own. They were literally inside of me. And so as a leader, then you had to operationalize what does that look like for you? And so that's when you get, yes, you're moving forward, you're growing the business, you're getting, hitting your mark and hitting your units and hitting your volume, hitting your margins, hitting your cost reductions, whatever that may be, doing your development plans and helping your team members grow and feel good about their connection to the mission of your company. When things started to go a little bit more difficult, and that's because we're in a cyclical industry, most industries are cyclical, even trash to a degree, trash collection. You got to have it, right? But you've sometimes a little bit more and sometimes a little bit less, or whether something is going to disrupt you and cause a challenge in your world. As you stack wins and as you stack your success evidence, you can also stack failure and stack setbacks and stack challenges. And just as you thought maybe you were the reason why in a lot of ways that it was successful and you had a part in it, you were also can attach yourself to the fact that you were part of something that failed or there was a challenge. So that became something of a challenge. And when that starts to happen, when you start to, I use this to use that my head was kind of stapled to the carpet of failure, that if I could have only done this, if I could only done that, if I would only recognize this, if I would only have seen around the corner a little bit better. Come on, man, you're smarter than this. You did all this. What's going on? So
you were reliving it.
And and that's the key thing. And what's happening at that point is that you are actually becoming detached from the present moment and not having perspective. You're now identifying with it. You're not having an arm's length relationship with it. You're now pushing it in, and then you're recycling it. And then what happens is you have a new reservoir. That new reservoir inside of you is one of doubt, second guessing. You mentioned like, hey, you're now, what's this person? Are they a friend or foe? Are they going to be, somebody who wants to have me be successful, or that they want to contribute, or are they not? You begin to second guess because you're transmitting what your reservoir has now. So if you don't address your pain, you're surely going to transmit it. And as a leader, when that starts to happen, you can transmit that in energy, in communication, in shortness of conversation, in distrust of people, and the fact that you go more and more inward and you go back to this lone wolf mentality because you have evidence that because of your hard work, determination, and your sweat equity, you grew the company. You grew the business. So again, you have all this evidence stacked, and then you have all this evidence stacked here and say, where's the reality? And the reality is that you're not coming to the present, the wow in the now. You're not allowing curiosity, intentional communication, like we had last night. If we didn't have those, and if we weren't present, those things, creativity didn't spur up, right? It didn't
Creativity,
happen.
Play, high energy. It was an attraction. It was like, and I wanted to the opposite of what you said, because this is really important for people to understand, because if they're in that mode, what does the opposite look like? And I wish there was a camera on us last night, because that would have been a great example of that's what it looks like when you feel secure, when you feel like, hey, you know, I'm not second guessing. It's just, hey, like whoever is at that energy level, that's what it looks like. It's not just because you're extroverted. It's not because you're operating in a different state of mind.
Yes, and part of it, you know, you can talk about the present moment and the fact that you're in it, but it's also the intention of where you're at. So, I mean, if you start your day with an intentionality of what I'm going to do, this is what I'm grateful for, and this is the intention of the day, you are bound to be more successful. Yeah. Big presentations and big meetings, I would just always ask, please help me to be humble and eloquent in what I'm presenting to this group of 2,000 or 500 or 50 or 20 or 1. Please help me be humble and eloquent. And when I didn't do that, it wasn't as good. And when I did, I set myself to be what I needed to be. So the intention was there, but also the curiosity of wanting to see the other. And what happens is if you're having this dichotomy of, gosh, I'm really great, and boy, I'm also a failure in a lot of ways, and where am I? You're not able to be curious about yourself anymore because you've got that figured out. Remember, we are the best people in the world to convince ourselves whether we are right or whether we are wrong. Bingo. We are the absolute best at that. We have mastered that. We have worked in it. We have spent, instead of Blink with Malcolm Gladwell, about 10,000 hours, we've spent hundreds of thousands of hours believing what we believe is the right way to do it. That's the hesitation that I have. And it's like the dichotomy of being an executive coach, or my wife and I doing couples coaching, is that we are not advice givers. We are placemaking for them to find their pieces that might be a dark cloth right now. What are those pinpricks of light that you can also start to see? Maybe there's hope here. What is that? And you're curious about it, and then that leads to other opportunities. So as going full circle here, going back to a senior leadership and the loneliness role, who and what can you do to break the cycle? Here's an example. The darkest times that I've had, whether it was covert depression or actually being depressed, the best way for me to get out of it was to reach out to somebody else. I want to say that again. It's actually, I remember a particular moment when I was just spiraling, going, gosh, where am I? I've lost my mojo. It was like Austin Powers. I've lost my mojo, man. And what do I do? How do I get it back? And one of the things that it said, I got a call. So I called my friend from high school. I called my roommate from college. I called my wife, who's she's a therapist, so I'm like her #1 client for 38 years. Right? She doesn't approach it that way, but we have some fun. I keep showing up. Here he is again. Great. Thank God. We Venmo. She anyways. I can't repay her enough for what she has done.
Priceless.
Well, and you know what? She is priceless. I couldn't give her enough Venmo dollars. And so making those calls and reaching out, calling my sons, calling my daughters, and just checking in and saying, not what's going on with me, but what's going on with you. And that created what I like to say, well, not like I like to say, it's like what I want to feel. It's a space for grace. It's a space for gracefulness. What is the gracefulness? Virtues show up. You know, that place of in between. It's not those polar opposites, right? That we have to hold. Sometimes we have to hold two tensions at one time. But what's going on in here? You know, and that's where the present moment comes. And I'm telling you, everyone can talk about it. Everyone can say, oh, that's what it's all about. To have the best conversations and have the best opportunity for you to get yourself out of what you need to get out of, because you know it's hurting you, know physically it can hurt you. There's all kinds of studies that, relationships help you heal. There's a Dartmouth study that people with the same exact ailment and surgeries, they looked at how they healed and how fast they healed, was a direct proportion to the number of people that visited them. Directly proportional. And so it's like that information, that stuff is real, and those connections are real. So the reaching out to other people, even in your darkest time, and say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Something connects you to an energy that isn't necessarily your own stirring, right? Like if you want to make soup, you can taste soup and smell it and how's it going? But to see if the soup is good, you don't just stick your head in it, right? You're kind of it's like a way for you to go and to deal with your own essence and your own soup is to say, okay, how do I taste this? What's it up? And so sometimes other people have a mirror that you've had in your life that can show you what you want or what you have become and your best version of yourself, and they can probably see that sometimes when you can't. And so can you do that as a professional, as a CEO? Absolutely. You have networks. You have people that you can start to connect with. I have always done, and that's the time when it was most difficult, was that I wasn't reaching out to somebody. I remember another senior leader in the home building development realm, very reputable guy in the market, and I had some hesitancy. What's he really want to do? Does he really want to know more about my model? So he wants to steal my business model? I mean, that kind of stuff, And all he wanted to do was just have a conversation now and then about what's going on in the market. And I was resistant to that. And I have made a decision, and maybe I'm just a slow, I've always been a late
that was the
bloomer.
era of being skeptical
Yes.
because you
very
couldn't
skeptical.
you couldn't trust at that time what someone's intention was and everything. You weren't sure because what we're saying, what we're identifying the problem as, you weren't sure of yourself.
Yes, and so that's usually what happens is that we're projecting what we're not sure of in our own essence. So, but that doesn't mean you have to be constantly your own self-reclamation project, so to speak. But what you want to do is
no one wants to be there all the time.
You can't. You just can't. And that's
be in the present.
And that's really kind of the hesitancy with I think the masculinity people, like when I do men's retreats or doing the calls or this thing called Dudes Assisting Dudes and having everybody on a phone call is to be able to share and be vulnerable with what's going on and creating a safe space for people to share because they don't have those avenues and opportunities. And to present those, a lot of people do it in church groups, those type of things. They're having their donuts on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, and they're talking about what they all believe in, and those type of things. So there's a lot of graceful things that happen from that to know that you're not alone and you're with other men, but to actually sit down and say something that you would be worried about normally, that how it would be received and if you would be perceived as weak or not being able to handle it, that's a real thing in this world. And I don't think it's just for men. I think that it's for people. It's for people that have hesitancy about sharing. So again, there's a lot that we could go on, but I want to be respectful of what your agenda is today, and I want to respond to that.
Can you talk more about the situation that you were in, that you're at the lowest point there, and about how you went through with the emotion of anger that you were able to regulate so much, but at that time when you couldn't, and then going through about even when you were able to maybe regulate alcohol, for example, but at the point weren't able to, or spiraled into that. But then just like describe kind of like, hey, I was, I thought everything was going well, and then things weren't going well, and because I think it's important to hear from your side of like, this isn't something you just overnight, I went down here in this valley, and then we can go into the area of what's the valley, the area between the two mountains that you were saying.
Sure.
Of what does that mean on your journey?
Well, here's what I want to do, a quick correction, and I want to do this in a very sensitive way. So I'm going to measure my words here because I think this is critically important. My challenge was not with alcohol. I'm a wimp when it comes to drinking. I have one drink maybe a week, and I've never had an issue with that being what I covered up my challenges internally with. what I covered, I know people, and I mentioned last night, it was actually some other folks that I've worked with or that have addressed that, and I know that that's a real issue with people in the world, and that's how they are self-medicating and masking something. Yeah, and I respect that journey, and the 12-step program and the magic of that is just beyond. It's magical. I've read about it and I understand it because in my work I have to know that and understand the power of that and how eventually you come to a realization that I cannot do this alone and I have to admit what I am doing right now. And so I'm very, very respectful of that.
Got it.
Yes, and so, but mine was more towards a melancholy. It's like, oh, it was a melancholy, like a depression, a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling like, gosh, I'm not as good as I thought I was, and that spiraled over and over, even where people are going, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? It's like someone that's really good looking in the world saying, gosh, I'm ugly. What? You're ugly? No, you're not ugly. What do you mean you're ugly? No. What do you mean you're not? I've had some of my best friends. What are you talking about? Where have you lost your confidence, man? You can communicate these things. So when I was, it was involved with some construction challenges at a community that I felt like I could have managed that better from the beginning and avoided it. In other words, if I could have been smarter at the beginning, I could have avoided that. In retrospect, no. The circumstances it was what it was, and it was at the time what happened, and the decisions were made that weren't necessarily horrific, but they caused a challenge to my company that I didn't want to have happen, and it was something that I attached to, that I could have done better. And so when I kept stressing and rethinking it and woulda, coulda, shouldas, it put me down to a place where my team members even noticed. They would say, where's the old Richard? Where's he? What's going on? There was even some surveys. What's going on with him? And they don't know, because you're not going to share that with the team, that, by the way, I'm feeling really down and I've let you down. And when you do, that's another spiral you can do as a leader in being vulnerable. So what did you do about it? Well, anger was there. I think anger was masking, and that's why I have this saying that I don't know if someone else has coined it, but I certainly like it, is that, as men, we want to lose our mask, not our masculinity. And my mask at the time was my anger about the situations and why is this happening to me, was masking anxiety. And so anxiousness and elevated heart rate or high blood pressure, whatever is, although I'm good with blood pressure, but you know when you're at an elevated point, you're not able to act and be the person you want to be.
And that adds the stress.
Absolutely. And so starting to acknowledge that. I've always thought of anger as almost like a masculine badge of honor, the anger of a coach on the sidelines, the anger of the senior leader that's rallying people to their cause, the anger of the union organization, whatever it may be, the anger that was part of the DNA that's in my family. There's anger challenges that's our default emotion. And so I recognized that I had a default emotion that was anger associated with when I was anxious. And how could that be happening, and how could that, and actually resisting it and fighting that. And so acknowledging that was my default emotion, and then eventually masking anxiety. How do I reduce anxiety in my life? And that's not by cutting off relationships. It was like, how do I have a better relationship with myself first? And that became more of, what's my intention for the day? I started to listen to more of what I was communicating. I mean, my wife and I have been doing marriage retreats for 22 plus years, and we constantly are looking at ways to help people to help themselves and giving them tools. And a simple tool, for example, here is my bookmark. I just looked at is this. It's, we actually make it into a bookmark. And it says, when you're in those difficult times, take time, Time. One, this is tough. This is difficult. This is very hard on me. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling disengaged. Whatever that feeling is, and being connection with your feeling as a man, feelings as your man is a whole nother subject matter we could get into.
Can you touch a little bit on that?
On the feeling side?
Yeah, as a man?
Yeah, sure. And So on the let's even use that, like the tough part is the feeling side. What is it that you are truly feeling from a perspective of, is it just not your default emotion, anger? What's that masking? What is your real feeling here? Howwefeel.org was one of the things that's developed by the Yale, a Yale study in that organization. There's howwefeel.org enables you to kind of look at where you're feeling right now, and you check in. And here's a mantra that my wife Carla and I use is to practice when it's essentially doesn't count, so you'll be ready when it does. And what you do is that's what enables it. You check into what what am I really feeling? Is it high energy, pleasant, high energy, unpleasant? Is it low energy, unpleasant, low energy, pleasant? What does that look like?
I used that app for half a year, Richard, to self-audit
Amazing.
all of my emotions when I was going through a period, and that's exactly what I did. And when we were talking about the app, the How Do You Feel, I was just like, holy cow, you know this too. And it was very interesting because when, to me, the best thing is like, if you're going to use data and if you are, in tech, and let's say that's the only language maybe you can understand, well, then put some data on yourself. And that's how I kind of connected the dots there.
Yeah, you're leveraging the strength that you have, right, to address something that might be an opportunity. That's what you're doing. And so that's a place where you're starting to say, okay, what is it and how do I feel, so that you can not necessarily how do I correct it or toxic positivity and say, well, this is the opposite, so I should think this way. It's just acknowledging it and saying, yes.
But it was the curiosity of learning about yourself and what the heck is going on, right?
Yeah,
and so open that door of curiosity, like what is actually happening?
And so then the other part of it, and then the other part of it is that then I'm not alone. Other people are dealing with this, so then you're connected to the universal challenges that are out there and the universal wonder that's out there. Right now, you're getting closer to the awe moments. You're getting closer, and then how do I be kind to myself right now? May I be kind? A mantra of may I be kind, may I be curious, may I be understanding, may I be compassionate, and then you enter into the new present moment, which is now back to you, Cee, and in this moment, and that's those. So there's a myriad of tools that can be there, and you throw these things out there, not throw them, but you lean into them and say, does this help me in times of my most difficult? Because there's a 1,000% certainty that we're going to face adversity in our lives. That's why when we look at Carla and I's company, WeDO Relationships, it's that we foster life-giving relationships that withstand adversity. That doesn't mean they just keep it away. To think that we can eliminate obstacles and distractions and opposites is probably what we first believe that we can do. I just want it to be calm. I want that wispy grass area where I'm just laying down and I'm feeling good about that, like I'm at the ocean on vacation, and I want that all the time. Well, there's moments that you can do that in your heart, but to actually fight that all the time and that be your aspiration is not going to cut it for you. You can deal with that on any issue. You can deal with that, like, for example, I'm doing a capital raise, and I've got to go talk to somebody about an investment. Well, what is your passion around the story of what somebody might be investing into? They're investing into a story, they're investing into an idea, and they're investing into a possibility. Yes, there could be a liquidation event and they get the return on equity. Yes, blah, 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 blah. We can have all those things there, but if they don't know the story and the possibility of how that can affect the world, then there's no resonant exchange at the end of that. We call that sometimes the divine exchange, or the exchange of our idea versus and value in the creation. So what's then the story? That's why you see the best people that can raise capital is they're telling the best story, and people are attached to the emotion of it. If we're better at that in our own world, whether it's high stakes challenges or high stakes success, and we can be calm and present and centered and virtuous, and then have passion where needed, where you're trying to make sure that the story is heard, or it's felt in a way, then you're going to be better off. So it all comes back to what's your reservoir of what you're drawing on and drawing from.
Yeah.
And if it's a dark pool, there's going to be dark consequences, even though it may come out as intellectual and thoughtful and programmatic and explaining the structures. But if you're doing it from a sense of curiosity and openness, and then you're not as tied to the outcome.
And play. Can I add play as well?
Yeah.
Because that's what makes it fun. It's like you're choosing hard, but like you're gonna have fun along the way, and that's what opens you up. It's I think play is so important. Really think it is. Can you touch a little bit on in the framework the I part of it, where if you're not sharing, then and that's closed, and then going into that present moment at the end, the E of like what that present moment actually tangibly for someone to be like, oh, okay, I've gone through the ringer, I've gone through the tunnel, and the part about feeling what is that? Because you mentioned how it can't be from outside influences. It has to be from yourself that you have that moment, that epiphany moment of you just even recognize something like that shift, that new moment of being present and what that actually means to someone who can't actually recognize it because maybe they've never gotten to that point of their life before or at that level of stacked responsibility. Whether that's listening to the trees or something like, what is it, just if you can describe what that looks like, that would be great.
Of like the moment where you can do that, like almost like a tactical example.
Yeah,
of that?
kind of. Yeah. That'd be like for so the I part of it of if you're not sharing, that is a signal that you've closed.
I see. So in this particular case, knowing that I'm not alone is probably the precursor in laying the foundation to, well, maybe I should connect with other people who are also experiencing this or might be experiencing this. Not necessarily that they put it on as a placard saying, I need help because I'm stressed as a CEO and I'm lonely and I'm a lone wolf and I can't share my vulnerability and I have imposter syndrome. Well, you're not necessarily going to have someone that, hey, we got a match, and then you're swiping left and right and you've got a match now. But if you put yourself in circumstances where you're going to have other CEOs or other leaders, you can create that group. It could be a group of one more person. It could be reaching out to them. It could be saying that I know that other people are in this position. Maybe there's some place that I can connect with. I've now, like for example, yesterday morning, very simply happened, is that talking to someone out of state, understanding that we are going through the same thing right now, at least in a descriptive way of we're like having a personal renaissance later. Let's put it this way, at our stage in life, we're having a personal renaissance. And so we're identifying that and knowing, wow, I'm not alone in my personal renaissance. I'm questioning. I don't know for sure. I don't know exactly. I feel like I'm not focused. Gosh, I don't even want to tell my significant other that I don't know if this is the right thing yet. Gosh, because we want to support, we want to care, we want to provide safety, we want to provide opportunity, we want to provide legacy. So just the fact of sharing and knowing that you're not alone in that opens up kind of like a, okay, I'm not alone here. Other people are doing with it, but don't add what you normally add, which is, well, then buck up, buddy. Other people are doing it. So that's the ego coming back, and that's coming. So what you want to say is, okay, there. Now that we know that, good. Yeah, okay. I'm not alone here. What's my mantra? I'm compassionate about it. The entering the present moment can happen at any time. What I do is when I look at nature around me. I can look, for example, on my screen, I have some trees. There's, right behind me, there's leaves blowing. That's how I can connect in the world. Gosh, when you don't have a windy day, it's more difficult for me because I don't see the leaves.
That's when you take off your shoes.
Oh my gosh. So
touch the ground.
You put yourself in the greatest potential to honor your moment. And so when I see that, and I even have a little Frameo where I took a slow motion picture of a tree, the wind was blowing, and I slowed it down, and I see the leaves all twinkling and the shining on it. And I look at that when I'm doing my morning commitments and morning intentions and gratitude, and I look at that and it shows up at the times when I need it. So what are those practices? And so you enter the new present moment by compassion first, because that calms your heart rate down. I mean, there's all kinds of breathing exercises that I've done.
But you're talking specifically about the disruption?
Yes, the disruption.
Can we talk about that? And then, because I think that's the moment of where you break it.
Yes.
You put like a little hammer to the wall, of like, oh wait, hold on. The world doesn't have to look like this right now. Hold on, I can actually change my paradigm. Hold on. There's something else, like this is what present looks like, and I was spiraling here, or I was reliving the failures, and wait, hold on, it's me. If I can just pay attention to what is happening right this moment, my breathing, what's happening right now, and that's how I can shift myself and start the transformation.
Yes.
To then be able to leverage the tools to be able to maintain, to then pull yourself out, get out of the mud.
Yes. And then all those tools that you've learned, all of those techniques, they now are available because you can see them, because they were behind a door. And so then the door opens up. You don't even know it. You don't even realize it. But all of a sudden they're there and like, oh, maybe this can solve the problem. Hey, what about this perspective? What about this that I tried before? And then that may not be the answer, but it tickles the tiger's tail to another answer that you can have. These are techniques. There's not this is where it's almost like, is it the old Apple commercial where you're throwing the hammer into the screen, and it's a new world, that type of stuff, probably the most famous commercial of all time. And I have found that when I want that, it's almost like I'm the hero that comes in and saves the day. I have dreams that I jump down on ropes and I take care of all the bad guys.
We see that stereotype a lot because in the Marvel movies, the Avengers, right? And we always see these Superman, Batman, and the cultural stereotypes that has been embedded, and say, oh, we need to reach for that, and that's why we can't share our emotions. We can't be vulnerable. What do? We have to hold it in. We can't. And not being able to say, like you were saying, how like the surveys, right? Of wow, Richard wasn't the same as how I thought I knew about him, and you're like, I can't say what's going on, and you're like paralyzed almost.
Yes, you get into that lockdown. So I'm trying to center here on there's a piece here that is tough to articulate, but let me try. Because we're fighters, and because we believe in self-reliance, and I'm talking me personally, and a lot of guys that I talk to, and a lot of guys that I try to help through helping themselves, is that we want to hammer it. We want to say, knock it out. Get out of that place. It's softer than that. This is like almost like you can say, well, is there a feminine part of us? Is there something that's different from us? Is it the caring? We can categorize and describe things any way we want to. It's also can be a curse to categorize. Mm. But what is here that's maybe softer? Maybe that's a little bit squishy. That's a little bit unknown. That's a little bit messy. It's muddled. It's almost like when you muddle something together, you have different spices, right? You can create an incredible spice by muddling different ingredients together with a pixel and a mortar, and you can have those ingredients, and then you have this great seasoning for what's going on, like as a chef. Well, if you can figure out ways in a subtle way to be present with a couple of tools, then it doesn't have to be as dramatic. There's a process of movement to where you'll notice it, and then you can thank yourself for getting there at the right time frame. These are many different adjustments throughout the day to now recenter, because maybe you're foreboding joy, or you're forecasting catastrophe, or you're saying this is going to be the greatest thing in the world. This is going to be the greatest thing in the world. I'm going to kill it. What's the kind of the virtuous area that's maybe a little bit softer, a little bit more realistic, and a little bit calmer? A calmer way to say, I'm curious to how this is going to work. That's what I did last night before that networking event. Was not a natural thing for me. It was not, absolutely not, because I've always had doing it on my own and figuring it out and helping others figure it out. but it's like, to sit across from people that you don't know and just laying it on the table. You had to have other like-minded people with an openness for sure, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was the case. I didn't know that the people would be open to those type of things. And so in those kind of vulnerabilities and, sharing aspirations and dreams and thoughts and what you really want in life, a way we have to share that with ourselves. What do you journal? Do you write? I have like pages and pages and pages and pages of journal. Now, that's because, and it's usually for one day, and if I'm able to articulate it or write an article, I had something about how to have great conversations, and write those things, then I'm more likely to do them. I'm more likely to put it down. If you write goals, there's Harvard studies that talk about people that have goals make like 5x, 10x more than the others if they were coming out as graduates of the MBA programs as opposed to those that didn't write them down. So here is you're putting on paper what you're thinking and what's going on, sometimes even if it's messy and dirty, because sometimes those gifts are in dirty paper. And this can be dirty paper. This could be a gift that comes from writing and thinking about these things or sharing with somebody else. We have to fill ourselves up with those things. Yes, we're programmed to be connected. Yes, we're programmed to not do this alone. But what are some of the tools that you're not doing it alone? What are you reading? What are you looking at? What are you listening to?
What the heck are you consuming? That's really, are you consuming fear all the time? Or are you consuming content that's going to better yourself, or areas that that, okay, you're maintaining this area, but you really want to improve in this area. So how are you designing your environment, your mental room on allowing for you to, because everyone goes through different seasons of life. And I love I love how you articulate about the journaling part of it, because the lone wolf mentality that we started with, you have an incredible experience on this. And for you to say, hey, Cee, I just turned 60 and I'm still figuring this out.
That's right.
And it was not easy for me to turn that switch. And can you talk a little bit about that before and after, wrapping up in this area, this before and after this, because it's hard to change your mindset, one, and for you to even be open to it, two. Because the lone wolf mentality is not helpful. I don't want to celebrate it. That's not it's more about, I want people to be able to acknowledge if that's something that they are in that season of life, and if and what does that other side look like in getting better, because it's not going to be an overnight process, as you're a living history of that. Mm-hmm. But you're open to receiving, you're open to working on it, you're open to wanting to aspire for certain things. But I love when you were talking about, you're like, I was never like this. I always just wanted to be by myself. Mm-hmm. I thought I can just handle it by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the first thing was that I always held on to a belief that I was meant to do something for this world. I was meant to do something where I can be of service to others. Sometimes that was lip service, and sometimes that was reality. And you can put yourself out into the arena as the best version of yourself at that moment. And I've always hung on to that allowed me to know that there's something more for me. There's something more that I can do. I see it in moments when I'm speaking to groups. I see it in moments at the retreats where everyone is, listening on the edge of their seat related to what I'm conveying. And then I go back to say, gosh, I probably wasn't good enough, was it? When in fact, it was all I could give, and I emptied myself at that moment. So how can I tap into this aspirational side of wanting to be the best version of myself, and in some cases fighting I am what I am and I'm not going to be able to change? I know that it's unusual, and I know I do know that people would say, oh, well, if he doesn't have it figured out by now, they're not going to figure it out. All the things that can happen, and I've seen that exactly happen in retreats that I've been leading by other men who believe that they should have it figured out right now, and that they actually cast doubts and aspersions to those that don't have it figured out by now. And so that's a reality, but you just got to say, hey, that's going to happen anyways, no matter what you say. I like chocolate. Some people don't like chocolate.
Yeah, don't play with those people.
Yeah,
you can choose not to do business with people who you don't want to do business with, period.
And you can also honor the fact that that's their journey and wish them well.
Right.
And not have animosity towards them. And that's really the challenge we have in the world right now.
Let them go, let them stay.
That's right, that's right. That's right. And sometimes they're there for our own betterment and our own learning. And so sometimes there's a reason they're there. And so I was holding on to the fact that there's something. So it was like, okay, I know I can be better here. I know I can be more at peace, more fun, more enjoyable. Is it the music? I have a music intelligence. I'm listening to music every morning when I set my intention.
Oh, yes,
how can I do that?
Yeah.
And it's so here's something that you can take it or not. But here's something that I found to be extraordinarily helpful, is that I start with and this creates the possibility for change and being the best version of yourself that you can be at the moments that are needed in your life. Whether that's you talked about parenting. There's a lot I could go in on to that.
Reparenting would be.
Yeah. And I can tell you that someone asked my wife and I at a wedding, just a quick digression, and said, how do you have such great kids? What's the deal? And you met my daughter last night.
Incredible.
And I stopped, and the whole table's looking at me, and two of them were expected mothers, and I'm like, gosh, what is it? And I said, I think whatever stage that they were at in their life, we honored where they were and who they were at that stage. It didn't label them as what society wants us to label as the terrible twos or the terrible teens or
acceptance.
We just literally honored where they were and were curious about what they thought and what they believed and what was important to them at that moment because they were seen. So how can we do that? That's the greatest gift we can give to somebody else is to actually have them believe that they are being seen and heard and understood. Sometimes it's the hearing gets to the portal of being seen, but if we're seen as a human being that I matter and I'm special, and how can we do that to ourselves? So start off with some music. You know, I have a Grammy-winning jazz guitarist I listen to, and he's won 27 Grammys, Pat Metheny. I play that. There's no words, so it's just there. I set the table. It's on that chair right over there with that light, and I write down gratitude, intention, thoughts, two different readings that I have, and this usually takes about 15 minutes. And so I start with the readings. I write down my notes associated with the first book I'm looking at, and this was an amazing one called Just This by Richard Rohr. Just This. Even this morning, listen to it. It says, when I first entered a novitiate in 1961, part of our training was to avoid, resist, and oppose all distractions. But it was fruitless and futile. But if you start with a negative, I don't, you will not get very far. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. This is from that, anybody, whether it's, they can come to that type of a conclusion. So you start with the intention of what am I doing today? What's the thing that I can, okay. Well, mine was, basically saying that what you resist persists. So I'm not resisting anything, I'm creating a new opportunity. So the music, write down gratitude, intention, thoughts, and then I write down the thoughts of what I read. The next thing I read, what are some thoughts about the article, and then what are some things how do I internalize it? What's my vocabulary around these things? And then that rolls to my intention for the day, and then that rolls to the gratitude that I have in my life. At the end, not the beginning, start with gratitude. You got to be grateful. You got to be grateful. You got to be grateful. Start with that. No. Let's lead to it and then say, okay, what washes over you?
That's the permanent expression that you want to be operating on. And thank you for describing that framework.
Yeah, and you can, and then you can make that.
I need
and
to send this to everyone. I
shared
have no
that.
idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. See, yeah, so welcome.
It's so hard to share certain frameworks in a way that is, in how you said it, and the reparenting part is, Richard, not everyone has been able to be so lucky to have been raised or been supported by a certain container or frame.
Oh, yeah.
That they're able to push through. And a lot of that stuff comes through in adulthood. And, being as a CEO, executive, a founder, you're pushed to your limits in ways that no one can really understand. And when I think about entrepreneurship, and let me put it this way, and it's weird for me to say this on this, I never thought I would do this, but we're here in this subject, so whatever. For me, entrepreneurship pushed me so much, and I wanted it, because I'm so curious about how far I can go, and that's the ambitious side of me. But I knew I had to go through a lot of things. And so entrepreneurship to me is stripped down, seeing all the scars, all the flesh wounds. That's how I see it. And it's not something I celebrate as in, hey, look at all of my, but to me, when I see myself in the mirror and why I keep on going, I had to see all the things that I was able to bulldoze through for myself to be able to serve better, be able to serve myself better, because if I can't help myself, I can't help anyone else. And so what I love what you're saying is being a lone wolf, to get out of that mentality, get out of isolation, understand that as primal it is as being a human. And one thing my business mentor taught me a lot was, you can't go in the woods, Cee. Everyone's always like, let's go to the woods and be like a nomad in that way, because you're fighting society. You're fighting like the species of being a human. You're not actually adding value to society. You're actually working against the grain. And I learned, and this goes back to the whole thing of, the opposite side of the lone wolf, and you saying, hey, that networking thing, holy shit, Cee, that's not what I usually do. That's not my normal cocktail recipe, that's not my normal Thursday. And so I'm so proud that we've been able to connect in that way. And when the second bullet point of what we were talking about a lot about the invite, don't hijack your own story, invite others to your story. And by showing up, you have invited me into your story, and I have invited you into my story. So I thank you so much for your time and wisdom and sharing what those tactical framework can look like, because as much as I can say something, it's the natural tendency is that if you're too close to someone, sometimes they can't hear it. And sometimes they need someone else to hear it. Whether it can be marketing, whether it can be finance, whether it can be security, it doesn't really matter. It's just how the human works. And so bringing someone else to talk about it and hearing it in a different way that maybe they can resonate and hear the relevance of it, because they can feel like they can, resonate with maybe your background and your story. To me, I think that's the most powerful thing, because it doesn't matter how we get there. It's just, please, get to the next mountain.
Yeah. I love what you said.
Create that bridge.
Yeah, I love what you said, Cee, about, looking at the challenges and how you broke through some of those things. You never waste a setback. What did I look? Maybe you look back on it. There's a Harvard professor that teaches us at Harvard University, related to never wasting a setback. And you look at what the setback was. you describe it like almost as a newspaper reporter, not with any type of, you just describe what happened. And then you come back, a couple weeks later and you describe, okay, what did I learn from that? And what was that experience like for me then? And then another month later, you come back and look at it and say, okay, what did I learn from that? What can I take with me? So you're growing and you're stacking learning, which I think is the middle area. Remember, we talked about stacking success and stacking failure. The middle is, what are my stacks of learning? To where maybe then, I like this, they're all on the same plane, right? And so they all have equal importance. And now you're choosing one that's kind of in here, understanding those, like you're putting it in the chair, and I know you, I love you, I understand you're trying to protect me. Or yes, I know you want to make sure that I'm still confident, but what are the learnings here so then I can be present for the next person? That's what people see. It's like, how are they doing that? How do they dance with the day? You dance with the day, Cee. You do. And I've seen that to you not only yesterday, but also today. And what you're doing is making a difference in people's lives. And what you're doing is making a difference in my life, being able to communicate and talk with you. So I really appreciate you creating this space for the grace of this day. And it's a great Friday, and I will leverage that all day long and into the future. And so I'm looking forward to connecting and be the best version I can be for me, so that I can be that for others. And hopefully a little piece of that came off for you, and certainly a piece of you came to me. So I'm thankful for that and grateful for that. So I want to say thank you for that, Cee.
Thank you, Richard.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you just for this open mentorship. Like, what a masterclass. Richard, Obernesser, thank you again for everything. Everything.
I love it. I love it.
Oh my
Thank you,
gosh.
Cee.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.